Hi, everybody. Guess what? It's at SkatingPj again, otherwise known as PJ Kwong, and I've got a really fun one for us today. I am talking to Chantal Fry. Chantal is somebody we follow each other on social media. She is a skating girl like I am, and she's also an entrepreneur. She is super interesting, artistic. Her former coach, Debbie Wilkes, says that she is a firecracker. That is a quote. So, Chantal, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I am really a fan of your work and your passion for figure skating. So thank you.
You're very welcome. You and I are in the same boat as far as that whole passionate about figure skating thing is concerned. So let's
Absolutely.
go way back to the beginning.
Okay.
Your company is Gleese on Ice. We're going to give people a chance to be able to see how to follow you on social media, and also just kind of where right below exactly. But I want to know. Tell me way back when. Tell me about skating. Tell me about you.
I mean, I think I fell in love with skating the moment I stepped on the ice when I was a little girl. My dad brought me to the rink in Unionville, and I had this extraordinary sensation of freedom, and I think I was hooked right there. I would always like hang upside down on monkey bars and stuff like that. So I feel like they just needed to channel all of that energy. And then, you go through the normal process of skating and all of the ups and downs that go with it. And regardless, it was really just that sensation that stuck with me, just the glide and the cool wind and all of the movements that I could do, with music. I think that's what really got me hooked from the get-go there. Yeah, for sure.
And you now have, of course, you're the proud mama of twin daughters. Did they ever learn how to skate?
Oh yeah, that was fun. I think I made the decision right then and there that I was not going to be one of those like a backstage mom. I was like, go do it again. No, but I really felt that I wanted them to learn how to skate.
Sure.
Just so that we could go out on ponds and, do fun things like that. But I really wanted my girls to be open to all creative forms. They're really creative creatures. We lived in France for 8 years, so a skating rink wasn't really common sort of ground. There was maybe one in the city we lived in, which I worked at. So I got them on the ice and they paddled around and then they socialized and then they came over to me and they were just like, "Can I get off now?" And I was like, "Okay." And then so now one of them is a drummer, the other one is a music writer. They're studying art and wine, and they're very creative. And I think that's what I wanted them to pull from figure skating is the creative side as well. So yeah, so I'm actually maybe a little bit relieved because I've been a single mom on and off, and I think that it would have been a challenge to go as far as I did with skating.
Do you know, it's so interesting. My three kids all learned how to skate, but they mostly learned how to skate because they wanted to be with mom, because I was a skating coach.
Yeah.
But none of them developed a passion for figure skating. And
Yeah.
that's fine. They got to follow their own path. So I want you to take me to your path when you were in, I want to say like acid, and you were doing some training.
Oh yeah, look at you. Yeah, so I wanted to be a champion. Ta-da! And that doesn't get to happen very often. But it didn't deter me from training hard. And my parents were amazing and gave me that opportunity to go to Lake Placid. I worked with Tommy Litz. It was actually on the suggestion of Debbie Wilkes. And I think after, training so hard, I got all my golds. Like, I'm so old now, I don't even know what they call them, but I did like figures in the Lucy rink, which I adored for hours, just tracing. It was almost like doing yoga. It was very meditative. And then I did these Saturday night shows in Lake Placid. They would have all the tourists come in and, gather around and watch the skaters. And I would always do these crazy, weird numbers that I would probably get in trouble for. I don't know. And my coach at the time said, "You're a showgirl." And I'm like, "What's that?" And he's like, "You need to start auditioning for things." I'm like, "No, I want to be a champion." And he's like, "Well, you're not going to be." So, which was a little bit disheartening, but then in the end, I realized that there was a whole other world to discover. And I started training, with that in mind. So really improving my off-ice dance movement skills, channeling creativity, going to museums, picking up on, the golden era of skating with Tyler Cranston and, all these extraordinary stage performances that happened. And then I basically set up auditions and found myself with Holiday on Ice.
Holiday on Ice. So this is something that I want to show people. This is On one side, the skater, and on the other side, the showgirl. Did you ever feel sort of no, let me go back to the question this way. When you were feeling sort of music and expression, was that a way to sort of come out of yourself and superimpose a character on top of you? Or are you that kind of outgoing showgirl kind of person?
Wow. I think that I'm I'm an introverted extrovert. I need moments to sit back and connect with my close circle of friends and my books and my art and wherever I find inspiration through travel. I think this showgirl side was a side that I wasn't allowed to show at all. And I took a lot of risks that I probably couldn't have taken. No, I know for sure I couldn't have taken when I was competing, but even on the ice, because I was really entering into an exploration that went beyond the boundaries of the ice. I wanted to take skating out of its context. So yes, this sort of pseudo character of sorts came out. I named her Chantal de Bisous, which is like kisses. And it did definitely dabble with more provocative thought processes in terms of what people may perceive skating to be, and what it can also be, but not always allowed to be. And I felt that as a full-fledged woman and mother of children, I could portray that side of myself in a more sensual way, because I was of age to do that. And
Well,
yeah.
I know from your website and from sort of doing the research before this that you, in fact, were a burlesque performer, an award-winning burlesque performer on ice. So, what was the inspiration to put those two art forms together?
Yeah, that's a great question. That was a really risky move on my part when I came out of the show circuit. Basically, what happened is at the end of my touring career, I was invited for the Cannes Film Festival in France to do a show on synthetic ice. I'd never skated on synthetic ice before. I'd heard horror stories, and it was horrible. But what I loved was that you could take skating completely out of its context and put it somewhere where you would not expect to see it at all. And that was a success. From there, I moved to Toronto and went to see this vaudeville style show for Luminato. And it was all these acts, like an old school vaudeville thing. And I was like, wouldn't it be so cool to put this on the stage? And this was the very first Luminato. So I think that was 2006 maybe. So I was having drinks with the producer after the show. And I said, hey, I do this thing and I would love to try it on synthetic ice. And what if I do a little burlesque number for the show? And she's like, well, come with the ice tomorrow. We'll see what it looks like. And I kind of just pieced it together and came up with this character. And I stayed with that show for almost 6 weeks doing this really risque, insane burlesque number. It was crazy.
It's hard to imagine a girl from small town Unionville, but you did live in France for a few years, so maybe that was where the influence came in. But certainly, it must have been sort of a very freeing kind of expression. I mean, you take the artistic as well as the athletic from skating. Now, tell me, the difficulty on the ice, was it sticky? I've heard that about artificial ice.
Yeah, artificial ice is a very fascinating thing, and it's evolved incredibly. The one that I first skated on, you feel like you're skating with your blade on a rubber mat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you really do. It's just stick, and then you would add this silicone. And after touring with Holiday on Ice, I actually did the Lido de Paris, which has this little skating rink of real ice. And it also intrigued my brain because of the size of it. It was so tiny. And when I skated on it, all I could do was like maybe an axel, and then you just sort of prance around, you do a spin, but you really get that skating going, you know? On synthetic, you have this small surface, but you're just like stick, 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 pose, stick, 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 pose. And you can add a little bit of silicone, but it really doesn't give you the same sensation. Over time, I've worked with different companies, and, you know, I've said, could you add a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that? And we kind of tweak it so that when I bring in these high-end skaters, or even for myself, we have more glide. So that's been kind of a custom process that I've gone through. A lot of these surfaces are made for hockey players, so they don't need as much glide as we do, obviously.
Well, that's the whole thing with the glide part. I mean, that's what defines figure skating. Okay, I just happened to find this right the second. Is this Chantal de Bizou?
That is Chantal de Bizou.
She's very, very I love the drama. I mean, the whole thing is just beautiful. How long did it take you to come up with that character?
A lot of heartache.
Really? That was the inspiration.
Oh yeah, a lot of heartache. Yeah. A lot of heartache. A lot of um, preconceived notions of what it means to be a showgirl, what you're supposed to look like. Also, when I was doing shows, you would get weighed every week. And if you gained a couple pounds, they would take money off your pay. So there was a certain look you had to maintain. I found that incredibly conflicting as a woman, but also as an athlete. I understood my body had to be a certain way, but I found it really damaging in my process. And burlesque allowed me to just say, I'm going to embrace this body in all of its forms. And I'm also not going to expire when I reach a certain age. I can still, be a mom and look this way. And also heartache just because, I'm a very passionate person, and love sometimes brings me up, and then it can also bring me down. And then I wanted to feel, beautiful at my age, or what I look like, or with a man or not a man. And being on the stage under the spotlight, wearing my skates, which is a comfort zone, somehow, I know it may seem strange, made me feel safer and more connected to my true self than just, going grocery shopping where I usually trip.
Yeah. It's funny when you talk about the grocery store and the tripping, but it pulls at my heart that you talk about heartache. I think that I've always said to young people as a coach, and of course I was a coach for a really long time. I've always said that, when you look at let's say the dog world, there are St. Bernards,
Mm,
there are Chihuahuas,
mm,
and you can't expect a Saint Bernard to have the weight and density of a Chihuahua, nor the other way around. And I think that as a woman, again, in talking to my skaters over the course of time, as women, our weight fluctuates. It's just kind of a matter of nature. So whether you want to be 102 pounds, there are going to be at certain points in the month where you might be 105 pounds that have nothing to do with potato chips and dip.
mm.
So it's a little bit unrealistic. One of the things that has drawn me to your story, and we're going to get to the fact that you're an author and an entrepreneur in a little bit for sure, but I love the fact that diversity is important to you. And given where we're at in 2020 with the major and I think welcome social upheaval that we're experiencing, where we got to get a grip. We are one world. I love the fact that you were singing the diversity song beforehand. Tell me about that and what made it important to you.
Yeah, it made it. I think that, I felt like I was always in a position of privilege because of the fact that, I could practice the sport that I loved. It was already in a niche that let's be honest, it's expensive. And so, but for some reason, I always felt like a misfit because, sometimes you just don't feel like you fit in. I was a little sassy. I was a little edgy. And, I'd get in trouble for that. And then also I felt trapped in my bubble. Maybe that seems incredibly, arrogant, but I felt trapped in this bubble of seeming privilege. I had a lot of issues, with depression and anxiety and, my weight and wanting to win and all of these things. But I did make friends with a lot of people who had those same struggles compounded by other issues, which actually was related to the color of their skin. And I felt like that was just atrocious because they could skate circles around me. And I was in awe. And I think when I had the opportunity to create Glisse on Ice, when I started that company, it was about, I felt the responsibility to make sure that I was going to implement not just the love of skating, but also the social agenda and awareness that I've acquired, during my travels or other experiences, so that when I started the company, I wasn't a hypocrite and that I didn't just conform to make it work. And I can assure you, I potentially lost a few gigs based on me steadfastly saying, this is, the best person for the job. And if you don't like my vision, then I walk. And I think that I had to be that way because otherwise I wouldn't be okay with myself. And even in the world of, luxury events and that sort of thing, they have preconceived notions of what a figure skater is supposed to look like. It doesn't happen often. My clients let me run free with my concepts, putting skaters in gloves and whatnot. But I did have a particular incident where they wanted to choose my skaters out of a catalog.
Oh.
Based on how they looked.
And was the look because they were trying to represent a brand in a certain way? I mean, I see that you have Asher Hill and Acacia Hill's twin sister, in this photo.
Yeah.
They're the team on the far right of the screen. Ice dancers, both. Asher, of course, an international competitor for Ontario at the world level. So what was it about the look that clients were after?
Yeah, this is such a weird conversation because I haven't chatted with them about this beforehand. So I'm very adamant about not wanting to appropriate a struggle that's not my own.
I understand.
To be honest, especially I didn't work with Asher a lot, but I just thought he was he blew my mind. And, I'm going to be really transparent. My very first show I did was for Cirque du Soleil. It was for their event, their Christmas party, which you have to call holiday party. And it was all the staff. And they said, I want you to do this romantic duet. And we're going to have a human carousel around this duet. And it's going to signify love and unity and diversity. So I was like, that's amazing. So at the time, I was like, oh my God, who am I going to get to do this? And I only had 4 feet of ice to do this on. Do you know what 4 feet of ice? I'm actually wearing my skates right now, if you can believe me. See?
Yeah.
She's in that. So anyway, so Soleil said, let's do something, different. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be interesting to bring in one of my skaters who was born in Haiti and adopted by a Quebec family, and was the only Black kid.
Exactly.
He was the only Black kid from, and we talked about this in my family endlessly. And he came and stayed at my house, and we talked about this and what it was like and all of this stuff. And he had a fascinating perspective on it. You can interview him one day. He's an extraordinary character. We're
friends. He and I are friends.
Oh, good. Anyway. He inspired me to the nines. So he was dating this adorable white French girl. And she stayed at my house because, we had all these French parties. Long story short, which I have a tendency to go long, when Cirque du Soleil came around, I was starting to get older. So I didn't really fit the bill of being the young, lovely maiden, So I designed this choreography with this older white woman and Maxime. And we talked about it endlessly, about what it would look like and how it would be perceived. And I said, it's now or never. This is what we're going to do, because this relationship under this carousel is not about love and sexuality. This is about pure friendship and understanding and respect. That's what we're doing. And if anybody perceives this any other way, let them talk, because they're going to do it anyway. So we had a whole conversation about that. I wanted to make sure he was comfortable with it, and he's always game on. And I think that, it is such a difficult subject to talk about in terms of how he would feel about it, but I can say how I felt about it, and I sure wouldn't appropriate how he feels about it. I'll just check in and have a conversation, because I think ultimately it's important to have a conversation and have voices be truly heard. When I move into current Glisse on Ice, Acacia is the star of the Casaloma show, based on her sheer talent alone. She is probably one of the most talented skaters I've ever seen on synthetic ice. She can pull off doubles, triples, spins. She does these like hoopty ha. Like she's got everyone on their feet at Casaloma. And to me, I always say to her, this is your show. This is your time. Like she just hits it out of the ballpark with her energy and pure love of figure skating. Her twin brother, Asher, is an extraordinary talent. I haven't worked with him very often, but I love his voice.
Yep.
He gives me life, you know, like, so I just sit back going, I want to hear that voice. And if I have the privilege of having a platform to showcase that voice in any way, and it works within my creative objective, or just it feels right, and we talk about it, then that's all it is. There's no statement other than just that. And honestly, there shouldn't be a discussion about it. That's what systemic racism is when,
yes, when stuff is systemic. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, in the broader picture, one of the things that really impressed me about you was the fact that you were talking about racial diversity, which is something that is sorely needed throughout the world, but certainly in figure skating. But also the fact that you were talking about, it sounded like size diversity, that you didn't want someone's weight of 101 pounds to be the deciding factor on whether or not you were going to use a woman in your show.
Yeah.
So it's about sort of inclusion, it sounds like to me.
Yeah, it was size, weight, size and weight, also just the best person for the job regardless of race, and but also ageism. You know, there's an expiry date in figure skating, and there's a certain look that's attached to it, and a lot of especially girls quit really young out of skating thinking there's nothing after. And that was a big personal venture for me to, yeah.
Tell me about this woman on the right.
The right of you or me?
The lady holding the skate.
Oh, that's me.
I know. Tell me about her. Tell me about her today.
That is a fantastic vintage fur vest that my mom's friend gave to me when his wife died. I collect vintage fur. I'll only wear vintage fur. I'm a little bit of I love that like look of like the Coach in the 80s with the big puffs, you know? I think that's, you know, that's my armor. I have like this sort of woman in business armor that you have to take on. I've experienced so much misogyny, also because I've never really backed down in the way I dress when I'm in meetings or the way I present myself. I've always been very, you know, transparent about who I am. I never had to, you know, work at you know, in an office in a cubicle to have to wear a certain uniform, I call them, to avoid, you know, harassment or whatever it is. I really think that that's the responsibility of men to just keep it together. So I think to me that look is like, don't mess with her, because you have to have an armor. But anyone who knows me knows that I'm like a big mushy, they call me the Glees Mama.
Glees Mama. I want to move forward a little bit on the creative aspect. You are an author. Chloe and the Snow Globe is your book. Why children's literature?
Yeah, that's a really special project to me. I a couple of years ago was really struggling with Glees on Ice as an event company. I was feeling really saturated creatively, and I was feeling really disconnected from the actual figure skating world. So I went back to reinstate my coach's stuff with Skate Canada, and I made the decision to only take on, you know, skaters. Because I wanted to really connect with kids when they first step on the ice in its purity, and to have enough experience as a mom to take away the fear factor that could stop them from maybe moving forward. And in that process, my sister has 4 kids, and her eldest son, Halston, would always ask me to read him stories when he would stay with me. He calls me Tata. And so I would read him like 10 stories, and he'd be like, I want another one. I'm like, no. He's like, okay, well then tell me a story. So I was putting a show together for Glees on Ice about a girl in a snow globe trapped in there. And, you know, I don't know, my brain goes in weird places. And he said, Tata, this is a great story. I said, well, let's write it together. So last summer during my time off, we sat down, he stayed with me for 2 weeks, and we penned the whole story. He helped me create the ins and outs and the characters. And then I worked with a very talented illustrator. And then it took a bit of time for it to come to fruition. And I tweaked it a few times. And then, yeah, the finished product came out a bit late in the season. So it's really technically going to be launched for this winter. But yeah, it's a really beautiful story. It really, really is. If you love skating, and even if you don't, it's just a good story. Yeah.
You know what? There's something to be said for a good story. When you think of yourself, do you think of yourself as artist, businesswoman, mom? What's the very first thing that comes out of your brain as far as self-identification, and why?
I would say a woman, because I'm very proud of that. I think I embrace all aspects of femininity from its core in terms of its strength, what your body goes through if you choose to go through that. And also my children are born of me because of being a woman. And I think I love women in business because I think we also bring that approach in terms of, you know, decision making and experiences that our bodies can go through. I mean, a great example is I think she's the Prime Minister of New Zealand. I'm not sure if she's the President or Prime Minister, but you know, she's been talked a lot in the press about her approach to COVID, and I really am proud to be, you know, an entrepreneur and a woman and a mom. I've been a single mom, hard. I had my kids very young, 22. And I think that shows an infinite amount of strength. And in some ways, I'm actually glad that I didn't marry these extraordinary men, because I learned to be an even stronger woman, because I had to take out the trash and like do those stereotypical things, you know? And then like, I feel like I took on all these, you know, quote unquote roles, you know?
Do you know, it's so interesting when we talk about your entrepreneurial spirit, Glisse on Ice, the show side of it, the touring productions. I mean, when you were in Marseille, and you started Glisse on Ice, or maybe you didn't, you joined a skating show and there was a skating tour. Tell me about the actual journey from you as a showgirl to you as owning a company that does shows.
Yeah. I'm going to be brutally honest, because I always am. I was touring. I did Holiday on Ice. I came back to Montreal, worked with an extraordinary choreographer there called Jean-Pierre Martin. He did this show called Sur du Miroir right in downtown Montreal. It was amazing. I learned everything from him. I call him the godfather of show skating. And I went back, I did the Lido. And then, to be honest with you, I reached an age where no shows wanted me anymore. That was just the reality, and it was very painful. But I love to skate, and I showed up every day, and I trained, and I put music on, and I did the things. And as a show skater, you want to perform. You train to perform. And I'm sure this is very relatable during COVID, because even athletes now, they don't even know what they're training for the next little while. And I'm sure they've had some difficult moments. So basically, it came out of a need to hire myself, which seems really arrogant, but it was kind of it. And I was like, that's how Glee started. And I had a few friends in France, and they started putting up these rinks in the city squares in all of these French cities. And we would do the inauguration and cut the ribbons for the mayor. And I would do this little show. And they titled us the most glamorous street performers. We'd tie our skates like, you know, on the sidewalk. And then, you know, we were just like, we'd pass a hat. No, we didn't pass a hat, but like, I probably should have, but the cities hired us. And when I went from that tour, then I did that show in Cannes and I was on synthetic. I thought that was extraordinary. And then I had to move back to Canada. And then I presented this synthetic ice, taking skating out of its context show to the event industry, because that's my business head. And the event industry thought it was extraordinary. Took a long time to get the gigs, though. I mean, everyone thinks you just show up and they're like, this is amazing. It's like, that's the hustle. I mean, getting the gigs is still the hardest hustle, especially right now during COVID. You can't group more than 10, 50 people. I mean, it's, you know, it looks glamorous on the outside, but it is a sweaty, ugly, behind the scenes, extraordinarily amazing hustle with amazing people. Like the Glee skaters, that's something that really needs to be talked about.
And do you tend to use the same skaters over and over? Do you have like a core group that you're relying on?
I do. I mean, they've changed over the years. I started
Sure.
with synchro skaters. I felt like synchro skaters had this sense of unity and group that was very good. I can't do more than 4 skaters on the ice at the same time. From there, I evolved into show skaters who would be back in town. And then, yes, when we got Casaloma, which is an extraordinary contract, I locked into a few skaters, Acacia Hill being one of them, Ali Hornsby, who's an extraordinary show skater and also talented acrobat.
Yeah, I
Yes,
know Allie too.
yeah, amazing. Acacia, Emily Penrose, who's in synchro, Jen Pickering. A lot of them are synchro girls, and they're part of the core. There's a girl from Italy. Oh, just love her. We call her the Italian Stallion, Laura. She's a coach, extraordinary coach, and they just kept sort of adding on. And I have this core. Barbara is another one. She's a coach as well. And we work together in my studio, and then we kind of branch out like this. Nick Braun was also an Adagio skater, and he came on board. Basically, he just shows up and he knows what he needs to do. I love the old showboats. You know what I mean? He'll kill me for saying that, but I love it because they're so good and they're on. They just step on and they know it. And this core group became a family. And we start every Glease rehearsal talking about how we're feeling and what's going on with this and all this. And I have this like vintage velvet couch of my mom's in the studio, and we sit there and we put our skates on and we talk about life. And I think that's what we have in skating, is these friendships, this connection to each other, and sharing it. And then it sort of branches out and someone will bring in another friend. Ali's recommended so many people, Acacia, same. And they just sort of join the family, and it rotates. But because I can only have 4 skaters at a time, sometimes Glease has shows going in 4 different locations. And I've got a Globe, at the Ritz-Carlton, and I've got something going on at Liberty Grand, and I got a show going at Casaloma, and I have to dispatch the team. And, the most important members in the team, though, are my daughters. My daughters design the costumes. They are ice crew, so they set up and strike the ice. They take care of my warehouse. Like, I couldn't do it without them and one of my daughter Astrid's boyfriend, Andrew. It's a family. That's how I say it. We're like that old traveling circus family, except we stay in Toronto most times.
So GleaseOnIce.com is the website. People need to go there because I saw that the trailer for the Casaloma show. It is exquisite. The other thing that you're trying to move on towards, I've noticed on the website, is you've got an area that's your shop. So I love these pants. I wish they'd been around when I was a skater. It looks like they've got pads in the knees where I spent a lot of my time crashing to the ice. And then the glove also looks like a glove that has some protection around the wrist and the heel of the hand. Tell me where you're at with your shop. What was the inspiration for that?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't something I wanted to do originally. It wasn't until a couple of years ago when I started teaching can skate again, and Skankate. Maybe that's a new thing. And I started teaching these kids, and I felt like I wanted to bubble wrap them because I'm a mom. So I talked to a lot of my skaters who are coaches who take their kids, to these high levels. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about it, because are they going to rely on this and not take the risk that they need to? And I think this is a debate. Then when I wrote the children's book, I really started to see that the people that are curious about Glease on Ice are not always figure skaters. Actually, Glease on Ice reaches a broad spectrum audience, a very diverse audience of people who just see skating as being a part of Canadian culture, and that they want to learn more, or everyone will do it with their family on a pond or, at a rink on a Sunday. And this is really beautiful to see. Skating is something I love to promote on all levels. I think it's a great sport, no different than, going for a hike with your family. And I think this concept is still in its creation. So it's not complete yet. These are just sort of little ideas that I've spewed out on the site. They are available, but I've got way more up my sleeve than just that.
There is no doubt in my mind that you have stuff up your sleeve because as I was taking a look at kind of your website and as you and I were exchanging emails back and forth, I just wanted to look at this picture. Oh, yeah, Dragon's Den.
They're going to slaughter me.
No, they won't.
They're going to slaughter me.
Because I'm not going to ask you anything about it, except to say that good for you. Because there's an audition process to get on the show, and they have to make sure that you're legit. So do you think that your standing in the community at large, as far as an entrepreneur and as a businesswoman, do you think that that gives you some kind of, what would be the word, sort of some kind of credibility?
Oh, it's funny. I decided when I got this audition, it was really on a whim. I had been skiing in Switzerland. I came back and COVID hits. And it hit in a way that I had to be in quarantine before everyone else because I had just come from Europe and I just wanted to keep my mom safe. And I said, I felt kind of tired, but I said I didn't want to, endanger anyone fragile. That was just my instinct. And I stayed home alone for 2 weeks. It was horrible. Like alone. And it was at that point that I actually went through the audition process because I saw that Michelle Romanoff, who's one of the Dragon's Den, said, yep. Hey guys, don't not audition. We're doing it online. And I was like, okay. So I just sat at my computer one day, just being like, I'm just going to do this. And it was very organic from my side in terms of my vision of where Glee started, where it's gone to, where it is now, and where I want it to go. And what I pitched to Dragon's Den was really that, but especially where I want it to go. Okay. And so I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's a skating thing and I still get coached. I'm coachable. It's hard to just sit and be like, yes, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm this and the, like, I feel like I still have a lot to learn. And, I'm learning every day from my skaters, my kids, different circumstances. And I think my business evolves because of that. Because of also, I'm not afraid to be vulnerable in terms of my failures because I've done some duds. And I've been, made fun of a lot for some of the stuff I've done. And that's okay. Like I took it and, I also took it to the bank.
Yep. Yep. So that idea of being solid in business, I don't think that there's that. I don't really, I'm self-employed, so yeah. Clearly I make a living in some way, yeah. But I don't know that that would stand me in good stead in trying to sell a business. Do you know what I mean? Right. So I think that you are extremely well respected. Here's a comment.
Oh, my girl.
Love one of your crew, Allie Hornsby. I know Allie Hornsby from Mississauga, where I used to coach. So I've known her for a long time too.
She's a dreamboat.
She is wonderful. Yeah. So my last sort of question is for any of the young skaters or young people who are out there who are still sort of struggling with this change in the worldview that COVID has provided, what are your 3 top tips?
Definitely stay true to your passion. That is not a cliche. You're only doing it because you love it. That's the only motivator, regardless of whether you're going through a test stream or you are next in line to be Olympic champion. It is purely about your love of skating. I think it's important to stay true to yourself in that process as well. It's not just about loving it. It's also about speaking up when something doesn't feel right in any regard, from training to whatever you're doing. That doesn't mean being arrogant or sassy. Just when something doesn't sit right, going in the direction of success or empowerment or progress, and someone is sort of hindering that, whether it's, gossip or misconduct of any sort. Never be afraid to use your voice. Maybe do it intelligently, discreetly, and to the right people, I would say. I think that's been my lesson. That's definitely the second one. And the third one is just have fun. It's fun.
Yeah, it is fun. That's for sure.
It's fun. Fun.
Here's a great comment from Nora Hollins, who's on these chats frequently. And you know what, Nora? I think Chantal's an inspiration as well. I love what you've been able to do with your skating career. I love the fact that somebody's saying, no, no, you're not going to be a champion. Doesn't mean that you're not a champion of figure skating.
Oh, I have goosebumps. That's cool. It's cool. It's yeah, it's cool.
Do you know what? This has been absolutely delightful. Chantal Fry, if people want to get a hold of you, how should they do it?
So the website is a great tool. I love Instagram too. I love seeing these talented skaters. I'm telling you, like, I live for it. I get so much inspiration in my shows. I want young skaters to reach out to me. Gliese is really evolving. I'm also working right now. I can't name names, but I'm working with an extraordinarily talented competitive figure skater on synthetic ice as a tool, not to replace the ice, but to really channel that creativity. This is something that I really, really, really think is necessary in skating. I say, you're basically, in this little box, and it channels your creativity to think outside of the box. And I think skating needs that. I'm going to be really honest. It needs it on several levels. It needs a bit of a reboot. And I just hope they reach out to me, and they can do that through Instagram. And also I'm always hiring skaters, always, we're always expanding and tons of projects. A lot of stuff is actually going to be turning to more virtual video and that sort of thing. So I have a passion project right now where I want skaters to send me why they love to skate and what they're doing right now to stay in shape, whether they're amateur or professional, and how they've coped with this emotionally. Not being able to step on the ice and have that community. So they can do that on my website, Gliese on Ice, because there's a contact page at the end. Don't call my cell though, okay?
Don't what?
Don't call my cell.
I don't have your cell number here.
Not you. I mean the skaters.
Okay, I was going to say, did I forget something?
No, I want to talk to you more. We're friends now.
We certainly are. I love this. I think that you are extraordinary, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. Chantal Fry, Gliese on Ice, everybody. Let's give them some support, and we will see you again.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.